In this video, we're going to talk about the severe weather pattern that looks possible in parts of Illinois tomorrow, and then we're also talking about a pattern change that could bring more severe weather to the Great Lakes region next week. Hello everybody, the time is 1:51 p.m. and it is July the 4th. Happy Independence Day to everybody. Hopefully everyone's able to enjoy the holiday, maybe enjoy some fireworks. This is from Light the Lake last year. Opportunity to see that. So hopefully everyone is out there celebrating and just having a good time with family and friends. We are talking about a severe weather potential that is coming for tomorrow across parts of Illinois, maybe even parts of the Great Lakes region. I am going to say, though, the threat does not look that significant, especially when compared to what previous models were showing. So I will say threat looking lower, but there is still the potential for some severe weather. I'll probably do a little bit of chasing, but not as far out as I was going to chase before. I'll probably stick to Michigan and Indiana most likely for this event. But I'm going to show you exactly what's going on with the models and exactly what we are expecting with this setup here. And then next week, I'm seeing a pattern change that could lead to some more thunderstorm activity potential across parts of the Great Lakes region and cooler weather along with that as well. So we're going to take a look at that and see exactly what that could amount to. So let's get right to it. Again, this is for tomorrow, Wednesday, July the 5th. We have a slight risk for severe weather, as you can tell, across parts of Illinois right here. Okay, so you have Eastern Illinois, Chicago is included in this, and then you also have Western Indiana and Southwestern Michigan included in this threat zone. This was just trimmed off by the SPC. It was actually including much more of this region, including parts of Western Ohio as well. But the threat has definitely gone down. If you look at the specific hazards, there is not really any tornado potential with this, not much wind shear in the atmosphere with this. It's really fueled by instability that exists in the atmosphere, and you can see the real threat from this is damaging winds associated with this cold front that we'll be going through. Now, given the fact that the potential is rather low, the chase that I had planned for northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, probably not going to be happening, but I may try to catch some storms across parts of northwestern Indiana and southwest Michigan, especially if we get some good storms firing over the lake. I will definitely be getting on those, but it looks like chase plans are definitely starting to dwindle down to more narrower regions as a result of the trimming off of this setup. So definitely looking like a smaller setup than what was previously anticipated. So we will see what happens with regards to that. But let's take a look at exactly what the models are showing with this setup. So here we have July the 4th again. This is as we get into the afternoon. So you can see that there's going to be some thunderstorms developing across Minnesota. And those thunderstorms could actually be severe, pack some tornado potential with them, according to what the HRRR is showing. So those will pretty much die out again as we lose that daytime heating. There is going to be some wind shear up here, but the wind shear is not going to make it down with the cold front that is going to be following along with it later on. Now you can see that these pop-up thunderstorms west of Chicago that begin to develop around 1 p.m. Again, I'm looking at the soundings here. You got elevated cloud bases, low wind shear, not really too much relative velocity in the atmosphere, not really looking like a good setup for severe weather, despite the fact that you have instability, looking more along the lines of a general thunderstorm setup. But again, some of these storms could reach severe levels, so just scattered severe thunderstorms, widely scattered it looks like. But again, some of those soundings that pop up do show an increase in relative velocity, an increase in directional shear, but not a large amount of speed and directional shear change with this. Now you do notice as those storms go over the Lake Michigan, they begin to start to dwindle and dissipate. Again, you got cooler surface temperatures over Lake Michigan, but then you see a re-intensification of thunderstorms across parts of central Indiana and southwestern Michigan as well as we get back into that hot, humid weather. And there actually is showing some marginal severe potential across parts of Michigan with this setup. Again, wind shear is going to be very low across pretty much all these regions. The higher flow that's going to be occurring is going to be much more focused across parts of Illinois and Wisconsin. But again, the storms that are popping up appear very widely scattered, and they will move pretty quickly, and I won't be able to keep up with them as well, especially if they're widely scattered. We'll probably just be on one storm and done. So I'm thinking probably just stick around the Michigan region, Indiana region, chase that area as those storms begin to move into the and redevelop over parts of that region, and maybe catch some over the lake if there is a good setup for that. But you can kind of see the storms do kind of show up as linear around 9 o'clock p.m. The sun is still out during that time, but again, as the sun goes down, you begin to lose that energy, and they quickly die out and dissipate as that sunshine begins to disappear as well. So these storms will not last too long. They will be brief and they will die out quickly, but they still could pack some damaging winds and maybe a little bit of small hail with them as well, but still not the greatest severe weather setup, as you can tell with this event. So let's compare it to the NAM models. Again, the NAMs, one thing about the NAM that I find interesting is it does show some severe weather setup for Ohio come Thursday. So I do want to take a look at that real quick. But here we have, again, this line of storms setting up across parts of Illinois Wednesday afternoon. You do see that severe weather sounding that is being shown here. Cape Valley is close to 4,000. Very low speed and directional shear. You can see that there is a wind change, but the winds are very light. It's light and variable winds across the surface. And then you do have some mid-level flow that is out of the west, which, again, that's sort of what is allowing these storms to even fire in the first place as a result of that movement of winds in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. But again, still not showing really great severe weather potential with this setup. It does show up to be kind of a linear band around 9 o'clock. Again, this setup is showing a bit more low-level wind shear as that linear setup comes into place. That multi-cell structure on the Indiana border appears to have some intensity to it. But again, this threat does not look super great, and in fact the NAM really doesn't depict any storms firing across parts of Michigan later on in the evening, and it shows the cold front coming through a lot earlier. But it does show some storms firing across parts of Ohio, some widely scattered storms. Again, wind shear is going to be low here as well, but you do see that there is still some lighter mid-level flow. You do have some storm relative felicity. Cape Valley is around 2,700. Still, though, not really a good setup, and you can see that the storms are becoming widely scattered. Now, in eastern Michigan, the setup does appear to have a bit more wind shear, directional and speed shear embedded in it. So right now, there's not really any depiction of severe weather across eastern Michigan, but I would keep an eye out to eastern Michigan on Thursday afternoon, because I do see these storms firing here, and some of them are even showing some marginal tornado potential with them as well. So something to just keep your eyes open for. That could be a sudden development of some storms there, according to what the NAM is saying. HRW showing a very similar pattern. You've got that setup of storms across parts of eastern Illinois. Moving into western Indiana, you get a sounding of those. And again, it even shows some leading cells out ahead of the main line, which is rather interesting. But really, you can kind of tell that the setup is not as good as what was originally anticipated. So really, the plan is to stick to Indiana and Michigan tomorrow. Maybe go down towards parts of northwestern Michigan, and then maybe head north for that redevelopment of storms across parts of southwestern Michigan, and as they go linear and begin to dissipate. It is going to be rather photogenic. I do think there's going to be a lack of cloud cover associated with these storms, so there will be some pretty cool structures to see with these storms still. Maybe a shelf cloud could develop along these, but again, threat does not look very significant in terms of significant severe weather or severe weather in the long run. Now, I do want to show you what's happening for next week, because there is kind of a pattern change that's showing up that could lead to some changes in our weather as well. So you can see this is the 500 millibar height anomaly. What this is showing is the pressure changes in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Again, higher pressure values are associated with lower pressure on the ground, and also if you get a higher pressure value that kind of stagnates over part of the United States, that's symbolizing a high pressure system that's just kind of referred to as a heat dome that kind of just builds over parts of the United States. And that's what we're seeing. We're going to see it over the southwestern United States. So this is the Euro model. Again, a very reliable model showing what could be happening as we get into early next week. Now, pay attention to what's going on down here in the southwestern United States. As you will notice, you do see these troughs digging into parts of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. I do think these will foster some thunderstorms in our region and could possibly bring some severe weather to parts of the Great Lakes region as well, associated with damaging winds, maybe some of those more intense damaging wind setups that we have. Again, too soon to tell on that, but this is a pattern that is typical of this setup. You do have this really large heat dome that builds over the southwest United States, and notice as I go over the next few days, it just kind of sits there, kind of just baking this part of the southern United States. This is going to be probably a heat wave across parts of the southwestern United States. And while that is happening, you do notice that there are troughs digging into the Great Lakes region. This is actually going to send our temperatures very cool into the middle of next week. So it seems like our temperatures could drop into the low to mid 70s, but not without thunderstorms still, because again, what you're going to be seeing is there's going to be you have two competing air masses here. You have a cooler air mass here and a warmer air mass here, and when those start to coincide, it's very likely you'll start to see some storms along this boundary here as well. So keeping that in mind, it is likely that we'll see some thunderstorm development across parts of the Great Lakes region. Some of those storms could possibly be strong to severe as these two air masses compete with each other along this boundary right here. So wouldn't be surprised to see a few low pressure systems move through. And if we take a look at the winds in different parts of the atmosphere associated with these lows, again, this is the wind setup for the storms that we have tomorrow. You do notice that when these storms move through during the afternoon, the main amount of wind shear is going to be displaced off of the main line of storms. So that's why these storms are not going to be as strong as what is supposed before. But as we get into next week, you're going to notice these low pressure systems. Look at this wind shear we're going to have on Tuesday associated with this low pressure system. I think this right here could be a setup for severe weather that we're going to want to watch carefully, because this is a low pressure system. You have winds of up to 50 knots at the 700 millibar level, rather strong wind shear, speed shear in the atmosphere, and it looks like it's going to continue through Wednesday as well, and then even drop farther south on Thursday. We're going to get some pushes of stronger jet flow in parts of the Great Lakes region next week. So as I'm seeing that, I would be watching for severe weather during the middle and latter portions of next week, because I think that setup could definitely bring about some storms. Cooler weather across the Great Lakes region, but places especially in the southern portion should watch for severe weather come as this low pressure system and this trough digs into the Great Lakes region. So that's just something to keep in mind. I am seeing a few forecasts for thunderstorms. Again, too soon to tell how strong those storms will be. It's going to be a while, but this pattern, would not be surprised to see something significant during the middle part of next week. So just stay tuned for that. I'm going to continue to provide updates as that goes on. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this information was helpful. Again, we'll likely chase a little bit tomorrow, but again, threat looks pretty low, so we're going to see exactly what goes down with that event. But again, middle of next week, I'm going to be watching pretty carefully, because this setup looks rather interesting across much of the eastern and western United States associated with that heat wave. So just keep that in mind, and hopefully this video was helpful. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe. That's the only way I'm doing it. We're close to 1,000, about 150 more, so we're making progress. So thanks for your support, and I will see you all a little bit later.